Salut.
Les petits œufs te mèneront à Fontaine, mais tu dois les protéger.
Vite, Monsieur P, je vois des anges qui dansent dans le ciel.
Demande à mon PC d'aller plus vite alors. Par contre, si tu as des anges qui dansent dans le ciel, c'est qu'il y a un problème.
Vite, vite, Monsieur P. Non, Monsieur P, les anges aiment pas les compagnies.
Le seul truc qui est chiant avec ce costume en fait, c'est que imagine genre si je retirais un rond de la caméra. C'est relou en fait.
Monsieur P, il y a des anges qui veulent un bisou.
Vous êtes plus résistant. Ah mais vous ne voyez plus rien.
Allez, Monsieur P, pas de temps à perdre.
Non, ce grognasse.
Il faut y aller, Monsieur P. Oh non, Monsieur P.
Ouais, tu me prends pour un con.
Monsieur P. Monsieur P. Il y a des anges qui veulent un bisou.
Ah bah ils t'ont bien embrassé déjà, hein, les anges.
Vite, Monsieur P, je vois des anges qui dansent dans le ciel. Allez, Monsieur P, pas de temps à perdre.
Mais je suis pas genre devant toi.
Regarde, Monsieur P.
Regarde-les. Elles sont physiquement libérées du besoin de glaner, mais le conditionnement mental de tout jongler à poursuivre leur horrible besoin ne pourront jamais expier de
Et là va falloir que je la cover, hein, alors attention.
Je le sais, ceci. Mais non, Monsieur P. Les anges n'aiment pas les trop-ballets. Je vois de la belle, Monsieur P. Vite, Monsieur P. Je vois des anges qui dansent dans le ciel. Donnez-moi des médicaments. Il a l'air
Tiens, tes médicaments.
Vite, vite, Monsieur P. Je suis une gentille fille, Monsieur P. Allez, Monsieur P. Pas de temps à perdre.
Petite sœur.
Il y a des anges qui veulent un bisou. C'était un ange. Mais non, Monsieur P. Les anges n'aiment pas les trop-ballets. Vite, Monsieur P. Je vois des anges qui dansent dans le ciel.
Oh oh. Ouh, ouh. Dépêche-toi. Oh là là, 6 fois 2 égale citron. Ça a déclenché l'alarme. Blanc, 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 blanc. Moi je vois que t'as failli te faire exploser la gueule. Burn. You wanna 1v1 me? Come at me, bro.
Monsieur P. Il y a des anges qui veulent un bisou. Vite, vite, Monsieur P.
Putain, l'autre elle est en train de se faire éclater. Ah ouais, tu m'étonnes. Oh, t'as s'est pris des roquettes dans la face, mais laisse tomber. Ouais, elle peut pas fermer sa gueule. Putain. On m'appelle pas Monsieur P pour rien. Si j'avance et que tu recules.
Les anges n'aiment pas les trop-ballons. Il y a des anges qui veulent un bisou.
Il lui reste un demi-point de vie. Il lui reste un demi-point de vie, quoi.
Il faut y aller, Monsieur P. Monsieur P, je vois des anges qui dansent dans le ciel.
Tu vas mourir à cause des blagues à la con.
Super. Je vois de la dent, monsieur P. On dirait que l'ange d'un...
Oh, elle a eu le temps de la frapper. Ouais, elle a eu le temps de la frapper. Heureusement, tu peux en rappeler.
Si une petite sœur périt, tu peux en appeler une autre dans une manche à air. Mais en perdre une seule, c'est un péché.
Tiens, on va faire de l'acrobatie ailleurs. Ça, c'est des trucs que je dis jamais, c'est complètement fou. Tiens, tiens.
Il vaut mieux que les petites soient avec toi, plutôt que toute seule, isolée, dans les ténèbres rampantes.
Allez, va. Ouvre.
Seule une petite sœur peut ouvrir ses portes. Tu dois les protéger.
Bah... Elle prend son temps. Hein.
C'est peut-être une dose énorme pour les travailleurs et les gratte-papiers, mais j'en veux encore. Encore. J'en veux, jusqu'à ce qu'il ne reste plus rien à s'injecter.
N'écoutez pas le
Elle n'est pas loin, c'est toujours au but.
J'ai plus que ça.
Bienvenue à la farandole des prix.
Oh, de la chevrotine, ça m'a manqué.
Bienvenue à l'amour, assouvissez tous vos désirs à la farandole des prix.
Y a pas tous mes désirs, hein, je te le jure.
Tu dois utiliser les cuisses de la petite sœur pour prendre son Adam à Fontaine. C'est le seul moyen de le vaincre. Fontaine t'attend maintenant, ça y est. C'est le point de non-retour. Prépare-toi bien avant de poursuivre ton périple.
Le point de non-retour.
Je me souviens du jour où je vous ai mis dans ce sous-marin avec la moche. Vous aviez à peine 2 ans, ouais. Vous étiez mon atout majeur.
Eh mais essayer de se bourrer avec du cidre, c'est un peu comme essayer de se bourrer avec du panaché, quoi. Même en buvant 30 bouteilles, en soufflant dans le ballon,
Vos affaires.
y a rien qui sort, quoi. Y a même pas un cristaux qui arrive, quoi. Même un cristal, pardon. Et si je le fais pas, tu vas faire quoi?
Allez, venez. On passe aux choses sérieuses.
Allez. Tiens, dans tes dents. Allez, la régène.
Laissez-moi une minute. Après, je m'occupe de vous.
Oui, bien sûr. Laissez-moi ma régène, après je vous bute. Monsieur P, Monsieur P, Monsieur P. Oh, oh là, ce punch. Oh là, je me fais enculer, mais dans tous les coins, quoi. Oh là là, mais comment je me suis fait trouer, quoi. Oh, ce martyr. Oh merde. Ah mais quoi qu'il arrive, je prends le shot, alors forcément, à un moment, ça va pas, quoi. Oh, déjà. Par le jeu, il va vite, hein, en fait. Mais bon, vu que je me suis fait enculer. J'ai pris trop cher. Ça a été la rentrée. Pas trop chiant. Bon, c'est un peu con d'utiliser des carreaux incendiaires là-dessus, mais bon. Je suis un peu con de toute façon. Oh, ta race. Ah bah voilà. Bon, une bonne chose. Là, ça va être chiant.
Je suis seul dans ce monde. J'ai une armée de crétins pour me protéger pendant que je recharge.
Électricité. What the fuck? Défonce-le. On va switcher en grenade. Vite, vite, vite. Merci. Je pense qu'une grande partie de la population aime la récréation, t'inquiète pas. Allez, 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 faut le déboîter vite. Putain, mais je me fais enculer pendant que je suis en train de faire le... Oh, putain, je me fais enculer pendant que je le pompe. Alors...
Je vous ai salué. Je vous ai envoyé là-haut. Je vous ai fait revenir pour vous montrer qui vous étiez, de quoi vous étiez capable. La vie que vous pensez avoir vécue, je l'ai imaginée et imprimée dans votre esprit. Si ce n'est pas ça, une famille, que vous faites...
Atlas vaincu.
Et maintenant...
Ah bah des aiguilles, on en voit tous les jours. Sauveur de petite sœur.
Elles ont offert la ville. Et toi, tu as refusé. Et qu'est-ce que tu as fait à la place? Ce que tu as toujours fait.
Bah je me
Tu
suis
les as
cassé.
sauvés. Tu leur as donné la seule chose qu'on leur avait volée.
La vie.
Une chance. Une chance d'apprendre. De trouver l'amour.
De te faire enculer.
De vivre. Et quelle a été ta récompense? À aucun moment tu ne l'as dit. Mais je crois le savoir. Tu as gagné une famille.
5 en même temps. Hein. Ouais. T'as l'impression de lui donner des coups de couteau avec la seringue. Vas-y, insiste, tue-le. Eh ouais. Ça aurait été rapide hein, ce soir. Il est pas faisable. Bioshock sur PS3 déjà il n'y a pas la fonction live, mais Bioshock sur PS4 c'est pas faisable parce que il y a le jeu est fait de façon enfin, comment dire, il y a un truc dans le jeu qui fait que tu peux pas le faire en live en fait. Parce que j'avais essayé. J'avais téléchargé Bioshock sur PS4. Je me suis dit je vais le faire en live. Et au moment de mettre le mode en live, bah ils te mettent que c'est pas disponible. Alors que là sur PC au moins je peux le faire. Parce que c'est indépendant de. Il n'y a pas de fonction live sur un PC. C'est un logiciel indépendant qui capture la vidéo et qui te la balance directement sur internet quoi. Donc là c'est faisable. Alors sur PS4 c'est vraiment un truc intégré à la Play. C'est une fonction intégrée à la Play. Et si le développeur fait en sorte que son jeu ne puisse pas être livé, et bah tu l'as dans le cul. C'est bête hein. Comme par exemple la fin de Batman Arkham Asylum. Comme par exemple la fin de Batman Arkham Asylum ou Arkham City, je sais plus. À la fin, t'es contre Deadshot et le combat contre Deadshot, en fait, il est caché. Je l'ai fait en live, mais ça se voyait pas dans le live en fait. Bon, voilà. Oh. Ah ouais. Slow Profane. Ébauche du videur. C'est les débuts du protecteur. Oh là. Mais lui, je crois qu'il y est dans le 2. Hein. Ok. C'est le même type que le plafonnier un peu. Stitchy. friamente. Le problème c'est que si sur PS4 le développeur il veut pas qu'une certaine partie de son jeu soit vue par la fonction live, bah, il peut brider et du coup bah tu l'as dans le cul. DBZ Fighters, l'histoire elle est bridée. Le mode combat heureusement il est pas bridé. Tu veux que je sauvegarde et pas sauvegarder le musée quoi.
From the moment you boot up Bioshock, you can feel the story grab hold of you. A plane crashes at sea, a mysterious lighthouse, a sprawling city beneath the ocean. Hooking the player from the first touch without overwhelming him with convoluted RPG mechanics was key to the success of the game and the skillful ramping up of Bioshock's legendary gameplay.
On va regarder les commentaires vite fait.
Bioshock has an amazing opening sequence that I can't imagine the game without it, with you know, the plane and sort of the crash. But I understand that didn't come online until like the very end of development. Sean, is that true?
We had a couple of really depressing playtests. We had built all these systems. We thought we were doing a good job of like giving basically people a playground to play with and things to do. And when we had a playtest, we didn't realize how bad of a job we were doing in exposing those systems to the player, because we were so in these systems and in our own heads, we had no idea that we just weren't facing them towards the player.
C'est quand même dur de,
So after that playtest, we
de nos jours, ça doit plus être aussi dur de faire un jeu parce que à l'époque, il fallait des idées, mais à l'époque, il fallait des idées, mais réalisables dans la mesure du possible, quoi. Parce que maintenant, avec le motion capture et tout, tu peux faire ce que tu veux à ton personnage, quoi.
To these systems, but do it in such a way that it fits within the narrative. So we had to integrate.
Il y a très peu de limites dans le jeu vidéo.
Cleanly, so that the player felt like it was one smooth experience. And I think the zap 'em and whack 'em thing was one of those.
Ouais, Zelda Twilight Princess, ouais, je connais. Je l'ai déjà fait sur GameCube. Pas en live, mais moi-même, j'ai déjà fait sur GameCube.
It was one of the most depressing experiences of my life because we were very close to being finished, and it was basically giving people what essentially became the demo, and people played it, and it was in Boston, and we were sort of behind these glass windows, all these sort of Boston guys are like, this is a wicked piece of shit, they hated it, and they were making fun of it, and they were saying, it's like watching some guys and dolls getting, beating each other up, and it's the stupidest thing they've ever seen. And we thought we were in pretty good shape at that point. And I remember the focus test guy was like sort of like a doctor giving me the bad news. Sorry, Ken, you better get your affairs in order. Right. And we all came into work the next day, and we were like, what are we going to do? And we're all pretty depressed. But I think we started talking, and as we talked, we started thinking about what are these people saying to us?
Ça prend du temps, c'est sûr.
There's something there.
Le plus important dans un jeu, c'est d'avoir quand même des bonnes idées. Hein. Après, les réaliser, ça va pas être si dur que ça de nos jours, mais l'important, c'est d'avoir des putains d'idées.
The crash still was in the fiction, it just wouldn't show.
You didn't see it, so you didn't have the voiceover saying, my parents always said I was going to do great things.
Ouais, le combat final, là, c'est... Il y a une phase à cheval, une phase avec le Ganon en mode facochère, et une phase avec Ganon normal, je crois.
one of our artists recorded the line. Steven and Sean and those guys got to work on
Et Twilight
building
Princess,
this very
enfin tous
simple
les
sequence,
Zelda,
which was the
tous les Zelda en général, ils sont très très bons.
relatively simple sequence, and then
Ocarina of Time,
plane crash actually happens over
Skyward Sword.
the Bioshock logo we already had. But I sort of we wrote a radio play behind that with altitude of the
Même
crash.
Breath of the Wild.
That I think set the emotional, and the people screaming in terror on the plane crash, that set the emotional tenor much better and explained who the player was. And all of a sudden, we released. Then I think the next real encounter we had was people playing the demo.
Yeah.
Tous les Zelda, c'est des super bons RPG.
No, I remember even back in the day, I think we did a thing on TV where we kind of talked about it. It was like that night, and I remember that night, like people on the forums were just like going nuts. And even though the game had a lot of press attention, when people finally got to play it and go through that sequence, I just remember there was this mass sort of excitement around it. And then the game shipped only a few weeks after that, right? Or a month after that?
A week later, or a few days later.
It's amazing, like now to hear that, like literally like a month before the game came out, like the playing sequence came online or something. I mean, it was that late. Right?
Well, we still had to go through certification and all that.
Yeah, so it's like within.
It wasn't far. It wasn't far. It was really last minute, and it was one of those things where like you really shouldn't be putting in content that late. Yeah. But we felt it. We were so close to having something good that we just rolled the dice on it, and we worked really hard on it. Like we worked really hard. I remember how much time I spent on just that recorded of altitude that I could still hear the different version of that in my head. There's been so much time on that stuff, and these guys were working on getting the animations right and
the scene was shot in engine, but we decided.
Ce qui est peut-être un peu galère d'ailleurs, parce que.
Right. It wasn't going to be some like weird streaming error or crash.
Le Wiimotion Plus, il y a très peu de jeux qui l'utilisent. Et c'est dommage que Zelda il utilise le Wiimotion Plus. Parce que Twilight Princess il marchait très bien sans Wiimotion Plus. Alors pourquoi Skyward Sword tu mets un Wiimotion Plus? Juste ça suit le mouvement, mais ça.
Now, as
ça rajoute rien de spécial.
We're testing it. I'm sure there was debate about, when would you introduce this plasmid, sort of what would the ramp be? Did that change at all, sort of as you got towards the end of development, about like, we're going to give people the gun at this point, or it's like we're going to trigger these plasmids at this point? Like, how did that work?
So, like, we moved guns around. Like, for instance, there was a big debate about originally you found a gun in the lighthouse, a pistol in the lighthouse.
Oh,
at the very
right
beginning.
there, yeah.
And because it's a shooter, right? Like, what the hell? And we had a lot of debates about it, and I feel that it was important that we didn't do that, because the fact that you sort of go through a lot of the experience without having the distraction of a gun is important to getting you immersed in the world. Because when you have all you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail, right? But you don't have the hammer, so you just sort of had to take in the world and have that feeling of fear. And like I know when you saw that splicer bounding around on the ceiling, that you couldn't do anything about it, and that had even though that's
those are those moments, right? Like I remember when I played Unreal for the first time, where it's like you're trapped and there's a monster and you can't do it, and the lights go out. It's like that's the moment with the splicer where you're like, I want to do something but I can't, and that evokes an emotion.
I remember we kept moving where the machine gun appeared around and where various plasmids appeared around. It was a real, it's a real fine-tuning process.
Yeah, and it gave us an opportunity, like especially with the shotgun, to really present the weapons, like put some space between them.
It's a moment when you finally.
Yeah, I think
we get the shotgun Paul sequence.
Paul Hellquist was he put the sequence together for the when you see the shotgun laying in the pool of light. Like every game developer knows what that means. You know the minute you pick that thing up, something's going to happen. But it was still a very effective way, as I'm remembering it, to look, I've been waiting for this thing, I'm going to pick it up, and now you have an immediate opportunity to use it. But at the same time, we're trying to ramp up the tension level.
Le fusil à pompe.
Is kind of on the outside of the light, so you can't really see them. And then come
et Zelda Majora's Mask. J'ai jamais joué. J'ai vu mon frère y jouer. Et franchement, c'est galère.
A lot of physical space and opportunity and time to really present that. So we came up with the narrative that it was the doctor's office and he used TK to practice.
Franchement, c'est galère.
And we had the turret in there for tennis balls at you. So if you wanted to, you could catch the tennis balls
Il
and
faut
throw them,
constamment
and
penser au
you can
temps, en
knock things
fait.
down. I think it revealed
Genre,
pickups
à
that you
une
could then,
certaine heure, un
you know, pull to
certain
yourself with
jour,
TK.
il
But
se passe ça
we're always
dans le
trying to think of like
monde,
little
il faut y
backstories
être
that
à
we
ce
could do. It
moment
doesn't have to be
précis.
as involved as the shotgun ambush.
Enfin,
Sometimes
avec
it's just,
quelques heures de
let's stick a
battement, quoi.
grenade turret and
Il
turn
faut
it
être à
into a
cet
tennis
endroit, à
ball
ce
turret.
moment-là.
Yeah, like, and because I remember like the impulse was, you know, I've been to dentist office. And there was some
Après,
like
tu
weird
peux pas
aspect
tout
where the
savoir.
dentist personality they
C'est
always
pour ça
want
que
to get
dans
through in their
Zelda, en
office,
fait,
you know. They just had to have their hobby. featured
même
in
dans
some way,
Ocarina
and
of Time, il y
so
a un
we
principe
saw
de
an
jour et de
opportunity
nuit.
there to both
Il
teach
se
a
passe des
good
choses le
tennis
jour, il se
nut
passe des
and
choses la nuit.
teach TK at the same time.
Donc, à un moment, sans solution, c'est vraiment compliqué. Franchement, avoir tous les items, tous les cœurs, toutes les saloperies qui traînent, genre les sculptadors dans Ocarina of Time, c'est super dur.
Nailing the perfect marriage of story to gameplay is a science that many developers still struggle
Et
with today.
Majora's Mask,
Bioshock has left an indelible mark on gaming narrative that can be seen and felt
le
in many
principe
modern
est bien.
releases. But Irrational's motto remained from the beginning: don't start with the story.
Le principe
start
est
with
bien,
gameplay.
mais c'est un peu trop lourd. C'est-à-dire, tu commences ton donjon, si t'as pas fini le donjon pendant les 3 jours, en fait, faut commencer le donjon genre au début du premier jour. Imaginons que tu restes bloqué dedans longtemps, parce qu'il est compliqué. Si t'arrives au 3e jour, que t'as pas fini le donjon, t'es obligé de revenir dans le temps, donc de reset le donjon et de tout refaire. Ça, c'est dur. Ça, c'est compliqué. Surtout que tu as des faits à trouver dans chaque donjon. Et c'est pareil, je pense pour avoir tous les masques. Parce que pour avoir le masque de Majora, tu es obligé de donner tous les masques à la fin du jeu pour avoir le masque de Majora. Mais pour avoir tous les masques, c'est aussi compliqué.
Character sheet. And so the game evolved more towards that experiential kind of thing and making sure every idea was expressed in the world as well as just on your character sheet. So before you'd have a lot of things like, oh, I'm doing fire damage or electrical damage.
Il y a tellement de quêtes,
you know, the whole notion of like,
de quêtes secondaires.
There's barrels and you light them on fire and then you can pick them up and throw them.
But you'd have stats coming off characters and all that stuff.
Much more so.
Oh, really?
And that evolved, you know, sort of, we did a design shift, but I don't know how well that got documented. I think we were moving so fast that we were just sort of changing things, laying down the tracks as we went right ahead of us. And the same with the screenplay. The screenplay there is no screenplay. It's a bunch of, probably Excel files and fragments of Word documents that I'd write and I'd go to recording sessions and I'd rewrite on the fly once I hear the actor perform. Because once the actor takes on it, you listen to their voice and you say, what you wrote doesn't really matter. Like, what is the right thing for this actor playing this role to be saying? So I tend to do a lot of rewriting in the session. And then, like, you have a bug late at night where somebody says, oh, this doesn't make any sense. And you're like, oh, God, you have to write a new audio log and try to get the actor back in. Or you figure out what's the best way to get this idea across. Yeah. And is it an audio log? Is it a poster on the wall? Is it a piece of text that pops up on the screen? And that's always depending on how much time you have and what actor availability is. So, the plans sort of fall apart. I think we've worked on that a bunch since on the new project we're working on where, we are trying to document things a lot better and keep things a lot more logical, but the train was running so fast on Bioshock that we just sort of...
early on, we got the Andrew Ryan scene in, like we'd said before, and that was kind of like the keystone. Like, we're going to put a lot of work into this, so this can't change. Everything that happens before or after that don't really involve a lot of departments working together to make a scene, those things are very malleable. And if you need to change audio logs to represent a story, if you need to add lines or take away lines, that's very doable. And I think for a while we even had like text to speech.
We even did that I remember for Infinite with Booker and Elizabeth and all their dialogue, and that really didn't work very well because you'd have these dramatic scenes and it'd be like, Elizabeth, we need to go to Comstock, and it just almost had no value as far as I was concerned.
Atlas radioed on ahead. Says you were looking for an invite to the fisheries. Nuts, I say. But if your heads up to the Wharf Master's office and find old Peach a research camera, maybe I could manage an invite.
C'est pas demain, c'est mercredi. Et
you can keep it all straight, or try to, with all the different things and changes. But from the team perspective, Sean,
et je vais trouver.
Because this is evolving and Ken's thinking in his head about how this all ties together.
Je vais trouver.
How does the team sort of keep up with, what the whole game is going to look like?
There's a lot of specifics that
je
can
vais
change.
trouver un truc.
For instance,
T'inquiète.
Atlas used to have a southern drawl.
Right.
And then we recast to the Irish.
And we actually cast an actor, wrote the lines, did the whole thing, and realized that people hated that character and distrusted him from the first start. So we had to rewrite him, recast him, redo everything.
Yeah. From a team perspective, you kind of get a
sais
sense
pas encore,
on
mais
which
je vais
things are going to be
trouver.
really volatile, and that you probably want to push off till later, because if you work on it now, it might change. Larger themes don't tend to change too much, meaning we knew we were in Rapture, we knew we had Big Daddies, we knew we had Little Sisters, we knew we had Splicers, we knew what the arc of the story was about Jack coming into Rapture, and the specifics of this radiolog versus that radiolog didn't really affect anyone outside the audio team at that time, because we could still build the environment. We still knew what the environment was. We still knew what the animations were. There are areas you learn just by working in the same space for a while, that this scene, I'm not touching this yet because I know that it's going to get changed a lot. I think these themes are pretty nailed down, so I'm going to focus the team on getting these things done.
I won't leave you twisting in the wind. We're going to need to draw out of hiding, but you're going to have to trust me.
The audio logs were, a great part of the game, and something that if you're
Ouais, de toute façon, j'arrête juste après. Là.
Listen to those and piece
Salut Morgan.
I imagine there's a lot of work that
Bon
goes
courage
into
pour
deciding,
l'école.
well, this is better for an audio log versus game dialogue, and there's the act of sort of cutting back and sort of saying,
Que le début, mais ça va se
what the narrative
compliquer.
is for the game. What was that process like? I mean, the audio logs, were there things you added at the end, or were those ideas that you had for the game, but then said, hey, maybe we'd demote these a little bit and make them audio logs?
As Sean was saying, there's sort of a hierarchy of expense that you have to face, and so any ideas you have to get across, especially as you start playing the game, you realize, well, this doesn't make sense, that doesn't make sense. You have to figure out how you can introduce that
Ça va
idea.
faire 50
And
minutes.
generally, as the train is moving, you try to think of cheaper and cheaper ways to get those ideas across. It's less important, it goes to an audio log. If it's less important, it goes to a poster on the wall.
Well, there's also characters that you can bring in that have audio logs that aren't, Atlas, Tenenbaum, those are your big ones. You can bring in somebody to do a short, a few different audio logs. It's a character that some players may not even find, but it adds a little bit of depth to Rapture.
And it also, usually each character generally is about a certain idea, and we don't just sort of come up with characters, we have an idea problem that we need to solve, and so let's introduce a character who's this guy, and he will be the guy who sort of shepherds you through that idea.
Julie, my dear, I am trying to run a business here. You want to spend time with my honeybees? Well, I'm going to have to start charging you for the pleasure. If I come out one more time and find you lolling out there amongst my hives, I'm grabbing my shotgun. As to your question, yes, my days in beekeeping school are a blur. But I do seem to remember something about that enzyme you keep blabbing on about.
So as you're going through the game and, writing things, rewriting things, were there things with the original Bioshock that you've always been surprised that more people didn't pick up on, or was there something that, a connection to a character you thought was really going to resonate with people, which, didn't? Anything like that?
No, it's the opposite. I was amazed, I don't know how you felt, but I was amazed how many people connected to the Would You Kindly stuff. Because I think it was when I wrote that speech, I don't think anybody on the team was like, oh my God, this is really this or that. And I don't think I really had any sense that people were going to connect to it. I think we ended up sort of over time finding more ways to support the notion throughout the game.
Yep.
And I don't think I really, until I heard Pat put together the revelation moment, you know, where it's like, you know, where you had all the bits that Atlas had said to you in the past building up, and then there was a visual that went along with that. That's when I realized it was going to be a really powerful moment. But even so, I still was, did I think people were really going to connect to it or really even understand it? Because it's pretty out there. And that it was meta commentary too. I think that completely, like, I think I thought like, oh, it's kind of meta, cool. But people connected to it in a much bigger way.
Yeah, the choice to age and everything, and also just, you know, being able to kind of roll back and think of all those other moments throughout the game. And it's, you know, a great revelation like that, they're few and far between in games where you sort of like, then you want to play it again, and you're just like, oh wow, really, that does all make sense, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think as a team, we were definitely proud of what we had done. But up till that point, you know, SWAT 4 was the biggest game that we worked on, and we had no expectation of that anybody would pick this up. Or even like Bioshock cosplay. I remember the first cosplay I saw with the guy in the Big Daddy suit, and his little daughter was in the kitchen cabinet. I think that was the first one I saw. I was like, what? Whoa, people know this stuff? That's insane.
Yeah, people were building these outfits.
Ah mais le Bioshock, hein, c'est vraiment célèbre. Hein.
I mean, that sort of went crazy with
it. C'est vraiment un très bon jeu.
And Booker. It meant a lot to people, and I don't think that's something we ever saw coming, and we're deeply grateful for.
Je comprends que
It's one thing to make a game and get good reviews and stuff like that.
Si on va tester ça des gens, hein, c'était vraiment des cons.
Tattoos and naming their children after characters. You can't plan for that, and I think the only way that could happen is if you just make something that's something that you're deeply in love with and passionate about. I can say we were. It was something there's a lot of passion on the team about, but we didn't know people were take away what they did.
Would you kindly? Would you kindly? Powerful phrase. Familiar.
Il a raison parce que des fois tu donnes le nom d'un de tes enfants parce que tu donnes le nom de tes enfants par exemple une série que t'aimes bien.
Part of the challenge with that, though, is when people love fiction so much and they dive into, you know, every word written in every audio log and try and connect all the fiction, make sure it all makes sense. Are there any things from that game that you sort of look back and it's like, oh wow, like we didn't explain this and we should have, or things that fans have misinterpreted over the years?
There are things we think that we did that should have or shouldn't have been in the game. Like I was never a fan of having two endings, and I think
comme il dit, il y a peut-être des enfants qui s'appellent Elisabeth grâce à la Elisabeth de Bioshock Infinite.
It's not something I really thought was a good idea because they're still limited, even though they're multiple.
Moi je te dis, j'aime tellement Devil May Cry que
it's clear that I was much more interested in
si jamais j'ai une fille, j'aimerais l'appeler genre par exemple Trish, ou un fils, moi j'aimerais l'appeler Dante parce que c'est trop stylé. Déjà de 1 c'est italien, Dante, de 2 c'est le mec qui a écrit le bouquin de l'enfer.
So yeah, that was the one thing, but
forcément,
that's a game that
I would have
the boss battle in the final boss battle. Like we seem to end up doing that over and over and over again. Every time we start a project, I'm like, I'm never going to do that again. We're never going to do that again, and we end up doing it.
Right.
We're not good at boss battles, and that you're fighting that guy, and look, this is the naked dude. It just doesn't work.
Totally makes sense.
But and it works pretty well up till then, but then it doesn't. It just doesn't.
Boss
battle silly.
Ils ont fait la même chose que moi avec l'arbalète. Bon, on verra ça plus tard. Sur ce, je vous fais des bisous. Je vous aime. Restez métal et portez-vous bien. On se revoit mercredi pour autre chose. Mercredi.